What's up, good people? Welcome back to another album review at Tate Clark Music, Tate's Garage. Before we get into this album, like, comment, subscribe, hit the Patreon page. There's a link below. Hit the Etsy shop. There's a couple of new designs on there. Your support funds the page. The page supports some other projects that I keep hinting toward that I need to get into, but we won't do that right now. So what album are we going to talk about right now? The new Hank Williams Jr. album, Rich White Honky Blues, released June the 17th of 2022. Now, Hank Williams Jr. is a polarizing figure in country music. So let's talk about that for just a moment before we actually get in to this blues album that old Hank has dropped on us. If you don't know who Hank Williams Jr. is, you've probably lived under a rock for your lifetime. Son of Hank Williams Sr., obviously. One of the most underrated musicians of a generation. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But Hank is now like 72 and is a polarizing thing because every freaking country song on the radio, just about new country crap, top 40 country, name drops Hank. And it drives me crazy. That's a video for another time. I'm not going to sit here and get into all that. But these guys name dropping Hank just drives me crazy. And it makes me curious if they're listening to this album particularly, because this is Hank as an alter ego. You know, Hank's got a lot of names. Hank Williams Jr., Bo Cephas, Rock and Randall, and here is Thunderhead Hawkins. Now, why does he call himself Thunderhead Hawkins? He mentions on the album that he calls himself Thunderhead because he fell off a mountain and survived. Now, if you don't know the story of Hank falling off that mountain, I don't really know the exact year. Hank was on a hunting trip in Montana and fell off the side of a mountain. Dude fell like 500 feet, and they didn't know if he was going to survive. He laid there for a few hours, I think 3 or 4 hours, in the snow. They had to helicopter lift him off the side of this mountain. Extensive surgery, reconstructive surgery, and that is the reason for the hat, the glasses, the beard, right? If you've ever find photos of old Hank without his glasses, you can see they had to reconstruct his face and things like that. And it was a pivotal moment in his career because up until that point, really, he was kind of doing his daddy songs. His mom paraded him around for years in his younger pre-teenage years and his teenage years, doing his daddy's music as kind of a tribute, which is cool. I am a Hank Sr. fan. If you like Hank Sr., it's good stuff. But falling off old Ajax Mountain really turned Hank around, and he started doing what we know as Hank Williams Jr. music. That southern fried, ass-kicking, crank it up, in a field, beer drinking, party all night, all my rowdy friends music. I think the thing that bothers me about new country artists name dropping Hank so much is, I'm not saying that they probably didn't crank Hank, which is a phrase that everybody uses, like, oh, crank Hank, such and such lyric, crank Hank. It's like these guys sit in a room and they're like, hey, we need a lyric. Oh, yeah, let's say something about Hank or Skinner or some shit like that. But anyways, back to my point is, I doubt that 90% of them ever cranked Hank other than All My Rowdy Friends or the popular Hank stuff. You know, there are Hank songs that I really love that are not like his top known stuff, and I really wish people would dig into his catalog, especially that he's getting long in the tooth. And you never know, our heroes are all passing away. And I'm not talking about his, stuff that's kind of risque stuff, dinosaur and stuff like that. I'm just talking about his songwriting ability. His musicianship is outstanding. Anyways, so Rich White Honky Blues, released June 17th, 2022. 12 tracks, 45 minutes and 52 seconds, produced by Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys for his record label, featuring Auerbach on guitar and some heavy hitting blues musicians. Now, when I say this is a blues album, it's not your mainstream kind of blues thing. It's not your Clapton kind of blues. Hank picked out some of the dirtiest blues from the Mississippi Delta kind of thing, which is some of my favorite blues, the R.L. Burnside, Junior Kimbrough, Muddy Waters, and all that. He did write 3 songs for the album. A couple of them are kind of my top songs for this, but there's that. So let's get into it. What gear does he use? I have no idea. When I saw him live, he played a white Strat. The last time I saw him live, which is 2017 or so, which he was rocking. It was good. He played a white Strat through a PV amp, and it was smoking. If you've never heard Hank play guitar, the guy is a phenomenal guitar player. Better than most underrated guitarist. So for this, it sounds like, Auerbach may have dug into some of his odd Supro airline kind of things to get this vibe for this album. This album is not very polished, and it sounds like a lot of this may be first take kind of stuff, but it sounds like, hey, Hank's always threatened like, I'm going to do a blues album because he loves blues music. And the one thing that you can credit Hank Williams about is he's always talked about the African American influence on country music. He always gives credit that a dude named Rufus, he calls him T-Tot. I don't remember his last name, but a black gentleman in Alabama taught his dad how to play guitar. And he also taught his dad about songwriting and all that. So he gives credit to this T-Tot guy all the time about teaching Hank Sr. That if it wasn't for this guy, that Hank Sr. would not have learned what he learned and would have not have been what I like to call the hillbilly Shakespeare of a generation. So he gives credit where credit's due. And I think that's where people are going to misconstrue the title of this album, the Rich White Honky Blues thing, as a political anti-whatever bullshit. And that's not what he's trying to do. We won't talk politics. Don't do that on this channel. Your opinions are yours. Mine are mine. That's cool. We can coincide with each other and be cool with each other. And if you like the jam, you like the jam. Remember that the music is universal. And music is a language that we all speak no matter what. Anyways. So, this isn't a Hank Jr. album per se. It's a Thunderhead Hawkins album, which is what he calls himself when he plays blues. And he picked out, like I said, about 12 of those R.L. Burnside, Mississippi kind of jams, except there's 3 that he wrote, which is cool. For him to use his songwriting abilities to do a blues kind of thing is kind of cool to me. So, let's get into my top 3. Number 3 for me would be They Call Me Thunderhead. This is one that he wrote. It's based off a song called "They Call Me Bocephus." Oh, and by the way, if you're going to listen to this album, don't do it with the kiddies around because old Bocephus throws some words around that the kids don't need to know. Hell, quite frankly, there's some words in here that I don't need to repeat, but what do you do? So they call me Thunderhead, which is the number 10 song on the album. 4 minutes, 4 seconds, and it's a kind of classic reworking of his. They call me Bocephus. It's your 12 bar, muddy waters down, dirty, grungy blues. His voice is strong. There's nothing more you can really say, but this one really caught my attention. Number 2 for me is a Bocephus Hank Jr. original for this album. It's called I Like It When It's Stormy. And to be honest, this is the number 9 song on the album. It's 3 minutes and 19 seconds. To be completely honest, this isn't so much blues. This to me feels like it could fit on a 70s Hank Jr. album. It was really tough for me not to say this could be the number 1 song on the album. But this sounds like it could have been on like High Notes, something like that from the 70s going into the 80s. Like, it's not very polished production wise, which is cool, but he wrote it. I like it. Musicianship on it's good. Like I said, my number 2 song is the number 9 song. I Like It When It's Stormy. 3 minutes, 19 seconds. Now, my number 1 song, which was tough for me, because there are a good bunch of good blues like Fireman Ring the Bell, which is a great R.L. Burnside rocker. There's just some good classic Mississippi Delta on this, but for me, it's going to be the last song on the album, the number 12 song. It's 2 minutes 51 seconds, and it's called Jesus Won't You Come By Here. And why would I pick this as my number 1? One, I love the rhythm in it. This type of rhythmic fingerpick blues thing just sucks me in all the time. It's reminiscent of Ry Cooder's Jesus on the Main Line. And the one thing on this that is outstanding is Hank's vocal. Honest, true vocal that's to the point. And when I first heard this was one of the pre-singles on the album that came out before the official drop, before the whole album came out. I don't know. It just hit right for me. And it's blues. It's traditional blues, but it's Hank Sr., Jr. in that vein of what I think that he's great at. His voice is strong to be 72. So that is my number 1 song on the album. Jesus Won't You Come Around Here. It's the number 12 song on the album. It's 2 minutes 51 seconds. So what do I give this album overall on my jam scale, ladies and gents? I have to say, this is about 4 jams out of 5, which is a high rating for this album. Is this album for everybody? No, it's not. And if you're a person that's looking for political connotations or highly offended by the F word or speaking of connotations toward different female body parts and whatnot, you're going to get offended by this. If you're a blues traditionalist that loves the Muddy Waters, R.L. Burnside, Junior Kimbrough, Arthur Turner, all them guys, you're going to dig this. Does this album change the face of music? Absolutely not. Is this album going to suck in the Jason Aldean crowd that's talking about Crank and Hank? There ain't a fucking chance on earth. But it's good that he recognizes himself as an artist and can do something like this and give us an album like this. So there you go. If you really like Hank, you're going to like this album. If you like Luke Bryant and all that, I would say move on. Listen to them talk about cranking Hank and don't do it. Just don't. You're not going to get it. And there you go. Remember, be kind to one another. Stay safe. Music is love, and love is music. Until next time,